Welcome back, everybody, to the Tennessee Titans franchise here on Madden 23. Today we've got some Week 15 action as we return home to face off against our rivals, the Houston Texans, looking to add our 7th consecutive win. We will also have a prospect profile in today's episode as we go over the top defensive linemen and linebackers in this year's draft class. The last episode was an absolute thriller. In case you missed that one, I recommend you go ahead and check it out because boy was it an exciting one. We faced off against the Lions and the Bills, both of whom are really good teams. They had the two leading MVP candidates at quarterback with Clyde Williamson and Josh Allen, respectively. And we ended up winning both games, and they were both absolute thrillers. In the Lions game, our defense started off really poorly, but we played well after the first quarter. The Lions actually scored a game-winning touchdown with just seconds left on the clock, but it was called back on a holding call. The most Lions-like way to lose ever. And then against the Bills, we won 37-31 with a game-winning touchdown from Malik Willis to Scotty Pickens at the buzzer to win the game. Malik Willis had arguably his two best games of his entire career in the last episode against Detroit and Buffalo. So it's certainly an encouraging sign to see Malik Willis playing so well. Before we get on to today's game against the Texans, I do want to go over our prospect profile, in which we'll be going over the front 7 players in this year's draft class, defensive line and linebackers. And I've been hinting at it for a little bit, but the front 7 class, particularly the pass rushers, this class is loaded in that category. So there are a whole lot of good players who we're going to be looking at. Multiple players projected in the top 5, a number of guys in the top 10 and in the first round throughout. And our Titans just so happen to probably need to add more to the front 7. I would say that's the weakest part of our team overall. We have the 5th worst scoring defense in the entire league, despite being 10-3. And along with that, in terms of total yardage allowed per game, we are 6th. In terms of passing yards, we're below average. Our run defense is actually in the top 6, but that's because nobody runs the ball against us. I think our team's rushing yards per carry allowed is probably the most in the league. In terms of sacks, we're towards the bottom as well. And outside of Harold Landry, who is spectacular, nobody on the roster is more than 3. We did trade for and extend Azeez Ojulari, but even so, we need more than just him and Harold Landry going after the quarterback. And right now, it just feels like those two, particularly Landry. We need some more guys, and we haven't had a true number 2 pass rusher since we traded away Jeffrey Simmons. Lucky for us, we have 2 picks in the first round and 2 picks in the second round. If Malik Willis keeps playing like this, we're obviously not going to pick a quarterback early, so we can really invest one or both of our top draft picks into the front 7, because that's really the only super weak area on the roster. Let's start with the defensive line, and there are a lot of good pass rushers in this class. And we'll start with the guy who's been probably the best pass rusher in college football this year, Adrian Moore out of Oklahoma. He has 11.5 sacks this year, which currently leads all of college football, and he's doing it in the SEC against elite offensive linemen, which is really impressive. 6'3", 269 pounds, solid athleticism. He's got good power and good strength, and he's very good against the run as well. Moore does not have elite bend or quickness off the edge, and I think that limits his ceiling a little bit, but the floor is super high. He's going to be a stud on day 1 and has a real shot of being a top 5 pick, maybe the second or third defensive player off the board entirely. He's not the only highly projected left end in this class as we look at Karamoko Sawadogo out of Kansas State, who is currently projected to go in the top 10. Sawadogo was elite last year, one of the best pass rushers in the country. This year he's been a little bit worse, but still looks like a bona fide first rounder. He wins with his finesse and quickness off the edge. I don't think he's anywhere near as polished as Adrian Moore. He's still been really good this year. 5.5 sacks, good against the run after having 10.5 sacks last year. I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than Moore because of the athleticism, but the floor is also quite a bit lower. We've got a couple other possible first-rounders here, including Yaya Mabuki out of Clemson, 24 years old, came out of nowhere this year, but he has 10.5 sacks. And then Mark Williams, the current active leader in sacks amongst all of college football. He's been a little disappointing this year, hence why he's not a clear first-round pick, however. I want to talk about Kobe Bryant, who is currently a fringe top 100 pick. Last year, this is another guy who looked like a surefire first-rounder. We saw it firsthand in the Pac-12 championship against Washington. This guy took over the entire game. He made plays throughout the entire fourth quarter, leading Cal to their comeback. But this year he has not been very good, and his stock has dropped a little bit. Only 2.5 sacks, and he's been worse against the run. I still really like what he brings to the table. He's an above-average athlete, and it is worth noting he does play at his best when the lights shine the brightest. He played well in the college football playoff last year for Cal as well. And then going down the board even farther, Sherrod Harris and Yusuf Oluwalu are both very athletic but raw pass rushers who I do like quite a bit. Let's move over to right end now with multiple surefire first-rounders, including Maher Jahir out of Kent State, who looks like a projected top 10 pick in this year's draft. He had 8 sacks last year, 7.5 and counting this year. He's got good quickness and speed off the edge. He's good against the run, and he checks all the boxes physically. 6'3", 270 pounds. He's consistent. He's steady. I don't think he has an elite ceiling, but he has a high enough upside and a high enough floor to where he's going to be worth a top 10 pick. I think Tykeem Rogers from Georgia is a little bit more polarizing. He's got all the physical attributes that scouts drool over. 6'8", 284. As a sophomore 2 years ago, he was the best defensive lineman in the country and probably should have looked to declare for the draft earlier than he did here. He's got an unbelievable set of pass rush moves, but he just hasn't been all that consistent the last couple of years. He has had a career year against the run this year, which I think has catapulted himself back into surefire first-round contention, and we know what the ceiling is. He was the best pass rusher in the country 2 years ago as a sophomore, so I think if he gets to a team with a good coaching staff who can continue to develop him, he could be very good. Harry Ragunan out of UNLV looks like a possible first-rounder as well, but I really want to talk about Francis Boa Kamoa out of the University of Buffalo. Going into the season, I thought Boa Kamoa would be a contender for the number 1 overall pick. As a junior last year, he was spectacular. This year as a senior, he's been quite bad, and his stock has plummeted to being a fringe second-rounder. Despite that, he's got elite athleticism, elite quickness, and twitchiness off the edge. But he has really regressed, not just as a pass rusher, but also against the run. Teams have figured out how to game plan against him, and he has been a significantly worse player. The athletic traits, we know they're still there, and he has the ability to be elite. So similar to Tykeem Rogers, who we just talked about, if he gets into a good organization who can coach him up, he could be really good. Moose Blankenvoort, Dalton Flemington II, Jabal Inman, and Antonio Bolmaro are other possible good fringe day 2 guys. Let's move over to defensive tackle now, taking a look at Brian Bowen out of Florida State. 6'8", 295 pounds. This guy's a monster against the run, and he's really improving as a pass rusher. The sack numbers are not there, but the pressures and the QB hits are. This guy makes an impact on winning football and is a dominant presence within the Florida State defensive line, even if the numbers suggest otherwise. He's a little bit of a tweener because I don't know if he has the athleticism and quickness to be a 4-3 defensive tackle, but he doesn't have the strength to be a nose, so he's going to have to figure that out, try to get quicker, try to get a little bit more fluid, or gain some weight and some strength and play as a nose. This next tier of defensive tackles is quite interesting, with Emeka Ejibuka, Dieter Jacobs, and Doris Newman. Of the 3, I want to take a look at Jacobs from Georgia, 6'2", 304 pounds. He's a little bit short, but he's got really good quickness at the position. This is a guy who's got ability as a pass rusher, as a run stopper. And again, his raw toolbox of pass rushing moves is impressive. The sack production just hasn't been there since his sophomore season. He has played his best football down the stretch this year for Georgia. As a sophomore, he was very good in the college football playoff. Most likely the Bulldogs will go back to the playoff this year, and I'm excited to see what he can do. Going down the board a little bit farther, there are some interesting guys on day 3, and it's no secret that the Titans could use some more depth on the defensive line. Marcus Clayton and Cameron Cash in particular, I think, could both be steals. Let's go to outside linebacker now, and let's take a look at the number 1 overall projected pick in the entire class, Babatunde Mamadou out of Texas. This kid is special. 6'8", 273 pounds. He can do it all. And Texas uses him in every which way. They use him as a pass rusher. They use him off the ball. His statistics in every major category are not that high because he does everything and he gets snaps all over the field. He's never had more than 5.5 sacks, but despite that, he's a dominant force as a pass rusher. He goes out in coverage a lot. They've had him line out in the nickel and as a safety. keep in mind at 6'8", 273 pounds, and he's got the quickness, speed, and athleticism of your typical safety who would be 6 inches shorter and 70 pounds lighter. This guy does not move normal for somebody who's 6'8", 270 pounds. He's built like Zion Williamson, and he moves as fluidly as a guy like Zion. Let's take a look at Buck Ratliff now. Maybe not the player that Momadou is, but he's an even more impressive athlete, which says a lot. 6'4", 250 pounds. I think he's the best pure athlete, regardless of position, in the entire draft class. However, he's not a very good football player. This is the true definition of a boomer bust draft pick. He's very raw. He doesn't have any major skills that he's great at. He's not phenomenal in coverage. He's not phenomenal as a pass rusher. He's not a great run stopper, but the guy is a total freak. He is going to wow scouts at the combine, and when they see him move, their jaws are going to be on the floor. Somebody's going to take a swing on him in the first round. I don't know if it's going to be the Titans who are looking for somebody who can be good right off the bat, but he's an interesting player. I think Tyrone Smith from Arizona could be a possible first-rounder, very solid pass rusher. Birdmeyer Vincent's a really good player out of Florida when healthy. That's been the concern with him. The medicals. Kalen Sillo out of Stanford I think could be a really solid day 3 value pick. Let's move over inside now. And these guys might not classify as pass rushers, but the inside linebacker class is still really good. And that starts with Giacomo Vivara out of Florida. 6'3", 230 pounds. This guy plays unbelievable in the biggest games. Last year in the college football playoff quarterfinals in the Rose Bowl, he had the game-winning pick 6. This year in the SEC championship, he had an interception against Alabama. And with Florida headed back to the college football playoff for a second straight year, I think he's going to be spectacular. At 6'3", 230 pounds, he has elite athleticism. This is of the athleticism as like Devin White and Isaiah Simmons. And those guys were top 10 draft picks. And I think Vivaro is a much more polished player against the run and even in coverage than both of those guys were. I think he's one of the 5 or 10 best football players in this entire draft class. And that might not be doing him justice. Napoleon Christian from Ohio State is also very good as well. 6'4", 260 pounds. He's built like a tank, and he can hit you like a tank. He is a very good athleticism, although he doesn't really have great lateral quickness, and that's the big difference, I would say, athletically between him and Giacomo Vivaro. He obviously does have 30 pounds on him. Solid against the run, solid pass rusher, solid in coverage. There just aren't many weaknesses with his game other than his lack of agility and lateral quickness. But other than that, he looks like a very, very solid prospect and could be worth a first-rounder. Jordan Venter out of Pitt is being looked at as a possible second-rounder. Marlon Robinson, I think, could be a steal at around the late 3rd. And then Zishan Juthani, Israel Abarazuke, and Lorenzo Rivers could be gems in the 4th round. And even down the board with guys like Arthritis Coleman and Brandon Anderson the 2nd as well. Let's move over to right outside linebacker, and we'll start with Sandalio Cortez out of Maryland. This guy is a monster against the run. He is going to be an early down player who just annihilates run blockers and makes plays in the backfield. He's got to improve as a pass rusher. I think he can with his size and athleticism, 6'5", 260 pounds. So this is another guy who I really hope gets into a good system who can develop him as a pass rusher. And if he does eventually become a good pass rusher, which I think he's got the size, the measurables, and the athleticism to do it, then he could end up as one of the best overall players in this draft class. But if nothing else, right off the bat, he's a stud against the run. Hyman Crawley is a little bit different. Even though he's listed at right outside linebacker, he's more of an off-ball linebacker, and I think depending on the team he gets drafted to and the scheme, he's going to play a lot more inside. He is one of the best pure coverage linebackers I've seen enter the league in the last 5 to 10 years. This guy's athleticism, his ability to get to 0 to 100 with his acceleration is uncanny. And he's pretty good against the run as well, and he's shown that over the last 2 years. He's solid as a pass rusher too, but in coverage, he is just fantastic. And I think, again, he's one of the 10 best football players in this entire draft class, but because of positional value, he goes down a little bit further, but will still be a first-rounder. Grant Rambo out of Georgia could be an interesting player. Now, he's got some medical question marks of his own. He's had a hard time staying on the field this year. When he has been on the field, he's dealt with lingering injuries. But at 6'5", 247 pounds, he's got elite finesse, bend, and quickness off the edge. He's just quite raw and hasn't really been able to show that. So he's a little bit of a flyer, and it's not ideal that the medical stuff is an issue with him. But I think he does have elite upside, but you're going to need to develop him because he's a little bit of a project. Aiden Milligan from Nebraska is the final player we'll go over today. He's an intriguing guy because last year he was one of the best pure defensive players in football. This year he's been good, not great, but good. The problem is he's a little bit of a tweener. 6'2", 222 pounds. He doesn't have the athleticism and cover ability, say, as like a Hyman Crawley, but I still view him as more of an off-the-ball guy, despite having 8.5 sacks last year and 4.5 this year. He's a very good blitzer, but I don't think he's a consistent enough pass rusher to where you want him on the edge, and he's certainly not big enough to really handle that. Zy Osbriel is a solid pass rusher out of Kentucky. John Henry Lefuve from Virginia Tech's a really good player. And then I think down the board, Anton Heineken out of Stanford could be a gem. He's a little bit small, but he's a good player. So that's going to wrap up the prospect profile on the pass rushers. Again, loaded group. Very top-heavy, and there's a lot of depth down the board as well. And as I said, don't be surprised if the Titans look at a pass rusher early, because we need them pretty badly. Let's now focus on our game here against the Houston Texans, who are quite bad. They have one win. They suck, but I don't want to take these guys lightly. They're still a professional football team with 53 NFL caliber players on their roster, and along with that, they're an interdivisional opponent, which I think neutralizes things a little bit. So on paper, this looks like a trap game, especially with us going on primetime next week. We beat the Texans back in week 1. Very competitive, close game that went down to the wire. Since then, it's been downhill for the Texans, who beat the Packers early in the season back in week 3 and have not won since then. They are 2 games lower than anybody in the entire league and will probably have the number 1 pick. And since they drafted a rookie quarterback early last year, I don't think they're going to look at Justin Tucker or Romeo Coloci. So maybe Babatunde Mamadou better be packing his bags and get ready for the quick bus ride from Austin to Houston. The Texans are led by the 9th overall pick, Kane Sanders, a quarterback. The hometown kid, he was excellent last year at Houston, and it's been tough sledding for Kane Sanders. He, quite frankly, has not been very good this year. At the start of the year, I think he was playing pretty well, but things have gone really downhill over the last month and a half. He doesn't look as confident, as poised in the pocket. He was playing very well early, then things took a rough patch, but I think things are trending up for him again, and he's coming off the best game of his career a week ago against the Colts, so if he can carry that momentum in for the rest of the year, I think he can really rebound on what's been a pretty disappointing rookie season for the former Heisman contender. The Texans have a solid group of weapons led by Kareem Hunt, Brandon Cooks, amongst others. And they've got some young guys here with rookies like Chad Johnson, Cassius Morris, and Jamison Watson. Outside of Laramie Tunsil, their offensive line is really bad, but defensively they've got some young pieces, including Cyrus Okpoko Jr., the former number 2 pick out of the University of Florida. The Texans have not really figured out how to use him. He didn't get his first sack of the year until week 13, but he's gotten 2 in each of the last 2 weeks. He also had 2 interceptions against us in week 1 and seems to always play well against us. Now that the Texans are finally using him consistently as a pass rusher, I think he could be a force. They've got other guys like Octavius Thatcher, Derek Stingley, Gabe Feldstead, and others on the defensive side of the ball. It's a young group. Obviously, they're not great. They've only won 1 game, but again, I don't want to take these guys lightly. And you know, we need all the wins we can get as we gear up for this playoff run. So hopefully we can keep the win streak going against a pretty bad, but I guess tough, Houston Texans football team. The Texans are obviously kind of in full tank mode, and there is a hypothetical shot that they clinch the number 1 pick today. It's not likely that it happens this week, but even if not, it'll happen pretty soon because they're not going to pass anybody in the standings. So let's get this game started. The Titans and the Texans, AFC North rivals, face off against each other. The Titans looking for their 7th straight win, while the Texans look to avoid their 10th straight loss. Good run early in the game for Kareem Hunt. Hunt gets the ball again here from the 26 with blocks, breaks the tackle from Juan Thornhill, and gets around 19. The Texans have leaned on Kareem Hunt early, and it is working. 2nd and goal from the 7 here for Houston. They've used up about half of the quarter on this possession. Kane Sanders goes short. It's caught by the tight end Tyler Higbee, and he is in for a touchdown. The Houston Texans are on the board first as it's 7-0. Not a great start for the defense. We'll see what the offense can do. It's on 3rd and 3. It's a handoff to King Henry, and he does not get it. He might have actually gone backwards. Jalen Petrie, the 3rd-year safety out of the University of Baylor, brings him down. So the Texans get it back. Very good start here in the opening 7 or so minutes for the Texans as Hunt gets the ball up the middle again with room. Kareem Hunt with a big gain, and he is wrapped up at the 37. Hunt's averaging close to 9 yards a carry, and again, the Titans' run defense, just as they have all season, looks soft right now. 2nd and 10, Sanders under pressure, goes short. It's caught by Higbee, going backwards, and he loses 3. Chidobe Awuzie brings him down for the tackle for loss. That'll make it a 3rd and long here for the Texans with about 2 minutes left to go in the quarter. Sanders looks to throw it here. He has time. Can't find anybody open downfield, so he goes short to Kareem Hunt, who is wrapped up by Thornhill. Sanders has really relied on the short passes, and he's been efficient, but he hasn't taken any aggressive shots downfield. So the Titans get it back, hoping for a better offensive drive than their first. But Willis is sacked on the play. Yannick Ngakoue brings him down. Cyrus Okpoko gets half a sack as well, but that was really all Ngakoue. 2nd and 23. Willis's first pass at the game is a beauty, perfectly fitting it into the breadbasket of Elijah Bryant, the rookie out of Florida, who comes down with it. 3rd and 9. Willis scrambling with it. Can't find anybody open. Trying to get out of trouble. And he's going to run out of bounds after gaining nothing. Cyrus Okpoko and Christian Harris bring him down, and that'll wrap up the first quarter. The Titans don't look very good. The offense has been phenomenal in back-to-back weeks, but today they're laying an egg as they trail 7-0 against the Texans. I told you, you can't take these guys lightly. I know they're bad, but it's an interdivisional game. 3rd and 10. Short pass is caught by Paris Campbell, who loses 3. Wrapped up by David Long. Great pressure off the edge by Devontae Turner Jr., the 7th-round rookie out of Purdue. So the Titans get it back. The offense has got to wake up. They're sleepwalking through this first half. Nice throw up the middle for Scotty Pickens. He gets it to the 43. Pickens had the best game of his season a week ago with the game-winning touchdown against the Bills. 3rd and 8. Willis overthrows the rookie Hot Rod Pryor. That'll force a punt, and the Texans get it back. As on 3rd down, Sanders makes a short throw for Paris Campbell. The Titans having a hard time bringing him down as he gains 10. Unfortunately, David Long is hurt. He's been one of the few good players in this front 7, but thankfully his injury is not serious, and he should be able to return to the game soon. On 3rd down, the pass is broken up. He was under a lot of pressure and good coverage by R.J. Robinson, the rookie linebacker, to read the screen perfectly in place of David Long. So the Titans get it back. They've got to get on the board sooner than later. Pickens with a nice play up the middle on the slant, gains around 23, and so the Titans appear to be moving it pretty well. 2nd and 10 at the 42. It's a handoff for Elijah Bryant. Makes a nice cut. Bryant weaving his way through defenders. He gets it to the 26. Elijah Bryant has around a 7 yards per carry this year. I understand he hasn't consistently gotten carries per se as his touches. A lot of his touches are manufactured as a receiver like that one. But 7 yards per carry is still pretty damn good. 3rd and 3. Here's King Henry breaking tackles into the end zone for a touchdown. The King has entered his castle, and this game is tied up. I honestly didn't think Derrick Henry was in. I thought he was a little bit short, but the officials didn't review it, so that works. The Texans have it back, but not for long. On 3rd and 11, Hunt loses yards in the backfield. The run defense for the Titans has improved a lot here in the second quarter. They've got a chance to take the lead before halftime with a timeout in 30 seconds. Willis goes downfield for Pickens, who wants to get every yard he could possibly get. So because of that, he doesn't go out of bounds in time, and the Titans have to use their last timeout. Rookie mistake, even though Scotty's not a rookie. After a couple incompletions, the Titans bring out the field goal team as Fat Randy splits the uprights, and that will wrap up the first half. It has been an ugly, sloppy football game. The offense does not look great, but we do lead 10-7. That'll bring us to our halftime report. Let's take a look at some of the games around the rest of the league. We'll start in Indianapolis. With us being in a tight interdivision race with the Colts, we need them to lose all the games possible, but they're currently not losing this one to the Jets as they hold a 14-7 lead with this awesome touchdown pass from Bartholomew Blunt to Nelson Aguilar, who drew a pass interference penalty while hauling in the touchdown. If the Colts win, they'll improve to 9-5 as they are currently 2 games back of the Titans. Next up, we head to Baltimore, the Thursday night game between the Broncos and the Ravens. Broncos country, let's cry. They're crying after this one as Lamar Jackson had himself a day. 3 touchdown passes, only 4 incompletions, Both the Broncos and the Ravens are now 7-7, as they're both well in the mix for the wild card race, but they've got to play well down the stretch to secure one of those final playoff spots. There's a real shot the Titans play one of these teams in the first round, assuming the Titans do in their division. And finally, the Battle of Ohio. The Browns head to Cincinnati to face off against the Bengals, and it's well-known woman respecter Deshaun Watson leading the charge for Cleveland, connecting with Jaden Wilson-Miller, the former Alabama receiver, in the back of the end zone. The Browns lead in a high scorer, 24-16. Both quarterbacks have been very good. Watson 18 of 21 with 3 scores. Burrow 15 of 21 with 2 scores. So as we go into the second half, I think the defense has really looked a lot better after that first drive was not good. Offensively, it hasn't been pretty. We have scored on back-to-back drives and are looking better, but the offense still has been very pedestrian today. And if our offense had played like this against the Bills or the Lions these last couple of weeks, there's no way we would have won those games. Hopefully the defense can keep that up, though, particularly for run defense, who started off slow, but I think is playing a little bit better. 3rd and 9, Willis is sacked. A quick end of the drive as it's Michael Winters, the rookie out of Michigan, who brings him down, forcing the punt. The Texans will get it back, looking to take the lead here. Kane Sanders still has really not thrown it beyond the first down marker all that often as he's intercepted. Asher Gonzalez, the rookie out of San Diego State, with his first career interception. If he was able to keep his footing, he could have taken that all the way. But still, a really nice play by Gonzalez, perfectly diagnosing the pass and jumping the receiver to make the play. Off of the turnover, the Titans got to capitalize, ideally make it a 2-score game, and this is a good start. Henry down the field, trucks the defender, and gets around 30. A big run for Henry, but unfortunately Scotty Pickens is injured. He'll go to the locker room, but it does not appear to be a serious injury, but unfortunately he'll be out of the game for a little bit. So Traylon Burks and the rookie receivers are going to have to step up. On first down, Willis is sacked by Cyrus Okpoko Jr., who now has 5.5 sacks this year, all of which have come in the last 3 weeks. I don't know why, he just happens to play really well against the Titans. On second down, Burks is wide open for a score, and the Titans lead by 10. Good route by Traylon Burks to get himself open as the Titans are rowing the boat. They lead 17-7. The Texans' offense now has to wake up. Offensively, the Texans have had a really hard time of scoring in bunches this year, hence why they're 1-13 or whatever their record is, 1-12 or something. I've lost count of how many losses they have because it's a lot. Sanders is sacked by David Long on first down, losing 3. Long back in the game after getting hurt in the second quarter. On 3rd and 10, Sanders goes up the middle, has an open man. It's Jamison Watson, the 7th-round rookie running back out of the University of North Carolina, who gets the first down. Sanders has been way too conservative today, but that time it paid off. First down from the 46. Sanders looks to throw it under a little bit of pressure, has an open man on the slant. It's John Mechie III who gets it to the 31 as Kalen Botts, the rookie right tackle out of Florida, drafted 6th overall, is hurt on the play. 2nd and 5, here's Kareem Hunt. Breaks a tackle and gets lit up by Kevin Byard, but he's now crossed the century mark in yardage, which is 15 carries today. 3rd and goal from the 2. Sanders looks to throw it, and his pass is caught for an easy score. It's a one-possession game. The veteran Brandon Cooks comes down with it, shooting the bow and arrow as it's 17-14. The Titans are going to try to get some more points here. They scored on the last drive off of the turnover. That's a good start. Elijah Bryant gets 16 as he continues to be one of the most efficient runners in the National Football League. On first down, Willis connects with Traylon Burks. He does a good job of creating space away from the defensive back. And that'll wrap up the third quarter. The Titans do have the lead, but only by 3, 17-14. Tennessee does appear to be moving the ball well as they're getting pretty close to the red zone. Now they're at the 1. 1st and goal. 8 minutes left on the clock. Willis hands it off for Elijah Bryant, and he is in for a score. The rookie out of Florida, Elijah Bryant, punches it in, and Tennessee is back up by 10. That lead? Yeah, that's the only 10 I see. I'm sorry, that was horrible. So the Texans are going to get the ball back, 2nd and 5. Kane Sanders looks to throw it. He goes short to Kareem Hunt. This time the check down works once again, but still, the Texans' offense needs to play with a little more sense of urgency. Kane Sanders can't just be throwing 5-yard dink and dunk passes all game. On first down, Sanders goes downfield. It's caught by John Mechie. If he kept his footing, that's a touchdown, but still a big play. Good to see Kane Sanders air it out. He hasn't been all that confident throwing against a very talented Titan secondary who's been the strength of the defense this year. On 3rd and 5, Sanders throws it away under a lot of pressure from Harold Landry. So the Texans are going to bring out the field goal team. They can make it a one-possession game here by tacking on the kick. It's up, and it is good. 24-17. Now it's time for the Titans to chew some clock and finish this thing. Keep in mind, they've got two pretty damn good running backs, so they should be able to do it. But they're starting off with a pass, and it pays off. The Texans were so focused on playing prevent defense, they didn't defend the middle of the field, hence why Pickens was able to get open. On 3rd and 7, Willis goes short for Bryant. He just wanted to go for the short pass, make sure the clock was still running, and Bryant gets around 5. So it's 4th and 2. The Titans have a very interesting decision, and they're going to go for it. Ballsy decision. They want to end the game right here on this drive. Willis looks to throw it, and he's picked off. Octavius Thatcher, the former first-round linebacker out of Oklahoma, picks it off. Since it's a 4th down, an interception is basically the same thing as an incompletion, but even so, Malik, you got to make that throw. That's for game. Houston now has a chance to tie it. There's a nice throw up the middle for Tyler Higbee, and that'll bring us to the 2-minute warning. 2nd and 10 now from the 38 for Houston, who appears to be moving it pretty well, but Sanders is picked off. Cardell Simpson with the interception, and he's going to dive quickly to the ground. He doesn't want to mess anything up. A big-time turnover by Cardell Simpson, the former South Alabama Jaguar, and this game should be over. Simpson has played his best football of the year these last couple of weeks after a really slow start to the season for him. And now the Titans can win it here the first down on 3rd and 3. Willis keeps it on the option. He is smothered. The Texans read the play like a book. They call their final timeout and have another shot to tie the game. The Titans' defense has been clutch these last couple of weeks, and we'll see if they can get another timely stop here. 3rd and 8. What a throw by Sanders, his best of the day, connecting with John Mechie. Under 30 seconds to go. Sanders goes short. That's a mistake as Higbee gets 9, but they've got to get back to the line of scrimmage quickly. There's 6 seconds to go. They're going to have time for maybe one more play as Sanders goes short. Campbell quickly gets out of bounds, and with 2 seconds left on the clock, the Texans are going to have time for one Hail Mary. They've got to send it to the end zone. This is it. Sanders heaves it deep, and it is poked in the air by Byard and incomplete. This game is over. The Tennessee Titans win it at the buzzer, 24-17. This game was not pretty, but again, as I talked about at the beginning of the episode, a win is a win. The Texans are the worst team in football, but the fact of the matter is they're still an NFL team, and they're a division rival. Division wins are not easy to come by in this league, so you'll take a grinded-out win like this against a scrappy but bad football team. The Titans have now won 7 in a row, while the Texans' losing streak drops to 11. That is bad. Overall, both offenses were pretty mediocre. I thought Kane Sanders was really good in the 4th quarter, minus the interception by Cardell Simpson. Sanders was finally aggressive, and he made some good throws. He just was not aggressive throughout the remainder of the game. As for us, Malik Willis was fine. He kind of reverted back to the mean of playing mediocre. Hopefully, his previous 2 games are not an anomaly. Both teams ran the ball well. Henry and Bryant continue to ball out. Tyler Higbee and John Mechie were great for the Texans. Other than Traylon Burks and Scotty Pickens, nobody was really all that productive at receiver for us. And then defensively, both teams had a lot of tackles for loss, particularly the Texans. Houston did a good job of getting to the quarterback consistently today. We only had 1 sack, but I thought the pass rush was fine. Kane Sanders had a lot of quick passes, and whenever he did drop back in the pocket, we did usually send consistent pressure. So I thought the pass rush had one of their not-so-bad games of the year because our pass rush has had some really bad games. And then both teams had very big interceptions. Cardell Simpson at the end, and of course Asher Gonzalez had his first of his career as well. So with that, we'll get a little bit of XP after beating our divisional foes. Again, I would have liked to have, played a better game, but as I said, a win's a win against a scrappy football team like the Texans. We do have a new injury, and it's actually a pretty big one. Chidobe Awuzie broke his ribs, and he will be out for the remainder of the regular season. He should be back once we get to the playoffs, but that's still a big loss because I think he's been very steady as our number 1 corner. I haven't said his name a lot in games this year because, well, teams don't throw the ball his way. I'm confident with Caleb Farley and Cardell Simpson as our 2 main outside corners. We'll have Roger McCreary Landry in the nickel, and we might see a little bit more of Harrison Harrington and Kareem Buare, two young guys who I do like quite a bit. As we take a look at the scores around the league, the Bengals lost, and that's relevant because we have now passed them for the number 1 seed. The Colts won, but the Jags lost in our divisional push, and then the Rams won, which hurts our draft pick. Players of the week, Jackson Kayuma, Joe Burrow, Zadarius Smith, and Khalil Mack. So that brings us to the tail end of the regular season. Next episode will be a doubleheader, and we've got some really tough games. No more easy matchups left on the schedule for us. In the next episode, we have New England on Sunday Night Football, and then we play the Vikings. Both teams are currently out, but still in the playoff picture. So both teams are basically going to be treating this like a playoff game because they need all the wins they can get. Speaking of the playoffs, we are currently the number 1 seed in the AFC. We're tied with the Bengals at 11-3. So if we win out, which is a lot easier said than done with 3 very good teams on the schedule, we would get the number 1 overall seed in the conference. We are pretty close to clinching the division. We're 2 games ahead of the Colts, 3 ahead of the Jags. We beat the Colts earlier in the year, and we played them again in Week 18, which will be in the episode after the next one. So that'll wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Tighten up. Peace out.